2019 has fucking flown by. In my opinion, it's been actually quite a strong year for music. I'd say ever so slightly stronger than last year. And it being very close to the end of the year, I'm going to do my 10 favourite albums of 2019. It was quite a bit of a task to whittle my list down to 10. I had about 30 to 40 that I was kind of reshuffling around. But I thought doing 10 would just be the most concise way. There's no point of me doing a top 35 albums of 2019 because that's just long. So now getting into the actual list. At number 10, I've got Ariana Grande's Thank You Next. Easily my most surprising album of 2019. I was not expecting such a strong, cohesive project from Ariana Grande, especially considering that I enjoyed some of the songs on Sweetener, especially like God Is a Woman. I didn't think that it worked well as a listen from front to back. I think Thank You Next improved on a lot of the elements of that album. There was a lot of emotional growth and maturity in her songwriting, and there's quite a diverse range of instrumentals as well on the album. You've got some songs that are completely devoid of percussion, like Ghosting, and then obviously you've got the upbeat bangers like Seven Rings and Break Up With Your Girlfriend on Board. But it's easily one of the best pop albums of the year so far, of 2019, we're at the end of 2019. One of the best pop albums of 2019. Her voice has got somehow even better, if that's believable. But yeah, I was not expecting to enjoy Thank You Next as much as I did. There's so many standout tracks from that. Needy, Imagine, the title track, Ghostin' is one of the most heartbreaking pop songs I've heard all year. But yeah, Thank You Next was surprising in all the best ways. Number 9, we've got The Boys, My Boys, Brockhampton with Ginger, their 5th album now? I think it's their 5th, yeah. You know, I've been a fan of every Brockhampton release since the days of the Saturation trilogy. But what they've done with Ginger, I think, is it's almost like their version of a stripped back record, if you will, because Iridescence was so eclectic and experimental, even more so than Saturation 3. And I think with Ginger, they've kind of laid all the members have like laid their hearts bare on the album, and it's made for a particularly somber album, but an important album in the Brockhampton canon. There's a lot of discussion about mental health, dealing with anxiety and the struggles of fame, and of course the emotional turmoil of fallout after the departure of Amir Van, especially on the song Dilly Departed, which is one of the most intense moments in music that I've experienced this year. But of course they don't just wallow in self-pity throughout the record. There's a lot of self-awareness, there's a lot of fun as well, songs like Boy Bye, but they juxtapose that with genuinely heartbreaking moments, and the closing track, Victor Roberts, completely unknown. I don't think anyone knew who Victor Roberts was before this song came out, but that his flow and his ability he sounds like a professional seasoned rapper on his first commercial appearance. That was a powerful moment on the album. But it still baffles me how there's 6 performing members and they're still able to condense every idea into the most concise form possible, because this album doesn't even break 45 minutes and there's 6 of them. Like Boy Bye is only 2.5 minutes, and every member is performing, and you get a flash of what each member brings to the table in its simplest form. And I think that is one of the strengths of Brockhampton, that they're able to condense all these ideas into digestible, accessible, but still artistic pieces of music. There's so many standout tracks from Ginger. Again, yeah, it works so well as a whole album experience, listening it from front to back. But yeah, I don't know how they keep doing it. They're 5 out there, 5 for 5. They keep doing it. I'm just excited to see what they do next. Number 8 is an album by a man who actually appeared on Ginger, Mr. Slowtie, with Nothing Great About Britain. To be honest, this one for me I was kind of late to this album, in all honesty. It came out at a time, it came out on the same day another particular album that I will talk about soon came out, so my attention was wholly focused on that album. And I'd heard a couple of the Slowtie singles, but I just didn't pay enough attention, and I admit that. But once I came to revisit Nothing Great About Britain, it immediately struck me as one of the most powerful, raw, unfiltered hip-hop albums, not just in Britain, but in the music world, to come out for a number of years now. His squawky, high-pitched vocals is juxtaposed with his straight to the point but also poetic songwriting. I think the reason why, of course, he has he's got a pretty good sense of humor all over the album. I think the reason why that sense of humor resonates so much and why it is so funny is because before you get to that sense of humor, he is explicitly detailing the ups and downs of his life and the environment that made him who he is. And he paints this grisly, truthful picture about Britain, and then is able to joke about it. And of course, with Brexit and the recent general election and the political landscape that we're living in now, it is an extremely timely and topical album as well. Even if you don't happen to be English or live in England, it's still got a lot of themes that you can resonate with no matter where you're from. Another thing about this album is that usually when you have an album that has a few bonus tracks, you can tell that they're bonus tracks. They feel like add-ons or loose ends, but in the case of Nothing Great About Britain, some of the standout tracks are the bonus tracks, especially North Nights. That is hands down one of my favourite songs that I've heard this year. Yeah, Slowtie, Nothing Great About Britain, one of the most exciting debut albums I've heard in a long time. He's definitely one of the most unique rappers to come out of the UK for a long while, and I hope he keeps doing what he's doing, because it's fucking sick. Number 7, we have Miss Lana Del Rey with Norman fucking Rockwell. Again, a bit like Thank You Next, this wasn't an album I was particularly anticipating, especially because the album that dropped before, I think it was Lust for Life, for me, personally, it was really underwhelming. I've been up and down with Lana Del Rey. I really enjoyed Ultraviolence and Honeymoon. Ultraviolence and Honeymoon were my two favourite albums before coming into this one. Of course, Born to Die is what blew her up, and I was listening to that when I was like 15, 16, so it's got a lot of nostalgic value for me. But going back and listening to that record kind of objectively, without my nostalgia lenses on, I can see that it's not the strongest album. But Norman fucking Rockwell just blows everything she's done completely out of the water. In terms of her songwriting has become much more nuanced now. She had a tendency to being extremely melodramatic, but now she's kind of honed that into being actually dramatic and captivating and poetic at times as well. Her voice has improved as well, so of course she has that distinct kind of breathy, loose, smoky aura to her voice, but it feels like now with Norman fucking Rockwell, she's honed in on that aspect of her voice and controlled it to where it sounds like it's not taking over the song, it's just a part of the sonic landscape. Of course, the centerpiece of the album, Venice Bitch, almost 10 minutes long, far longer than anything she's recorded thus far in her career, but it's one of the most sprawling and genuinely cinematic pieces of music that I've heard this year. And of course, she still retains that sense of love for, everything retro and Americana, especially in the song California, which is a particularly patriotic moment on the album. There is actually surprisingly quite a lot of sonic diversity in the song. You've got slow, crooning piano ballads, you've got kind of some zany experimental shit going on, and then you've got straightforward upbeat summer jams. yeah, I think that the most important thing to take away with Norman fucking Rockwell is that Lana Del Rey has now legitimately become one of the strongest and most unique songwriters working today. Number 6, we have Miss Little Simz with Grey Area. God damn, this fucking album, man. It is. I can't even fathom how. I can't put into words how strong and consistent this album is. I think the greatest strength to Grey Area is how open and self-aware and honest and confident that Little Simz is all over the record. I think that's perfectly exemplified by the song Selfish. Again, that's one of the best songs to come out this year. But that's not an exception. The theme that she discusses on Selfish is all over the album, on songs like Offense and Boss, Therapy, especially Sherbet Sunset as well. And I think it's it's good to see this approach coming back as a tradition where you sit down with one producer, only a couple of producers, and you build an album up from scratch, as opposed to having various people emailing you beats and then you sending your verse back and yada yada yada. And I think that approach is evident in the music, because you can hear how fluid and organic so many of the instrumentals are, thanks to Inflow. The one shame is that this album didn't hit the commercial success that its quality warranted, which is unfortunate. I think in this country it only hit like in the 80s or 90s on the album charts, which is a damn shame. But I think if Little Simz continues working at this level of assurance and quality, then in no time she will ascend to the commercial success that the quality of her music clearly warrants. If you listen to Grey Area and you don't recognize that Little Simz is one of the best rappers working in the country right now, then either you haven't heard enough rap, or you simply have a vendetta against Little Simz, because this album is fucking amazing. At number 5, we have the return of my boys. Goddamn, I was waiting for this album for so fucking long. Freddie Gibbs and Madlib, Bandana. Again, I placed my trust and faith that they would be able to somehow match the quality of Pinata. As much as I love that album, and I don't think it can be topped, they somehow delivered an album that is just as consistently great and captivating and funny and witty, and the instrumentals are so luscious. It's like fine wine just constantly being poured into your glass. That Bandana is, again, it's there's no more I could have asked for from this album. There's so many standout tracks, there's so many standout features as well. Pusha T, Yassine Bey, Black Thought is that verse is fucking amazing. Killer Mike as well. But again, yeah, I don't know how they managed to put it off again. It's just the consistency. They've condensed it down even further. I think this is about 15 minutes shorter than Pinata, but it still feels just as expansive and long in a good way as Pinata. And even though Madlib has been, he's a solidified legend. He's been in the game for like 20 years now. No one can question his production ability. But even this deep into his career, he's still producing some of his best beats ever, especially the beat for Palmolive and Fake Names and Half Million Half Cocaine, in my opinion, are some of the best beats he has ever produced, period. Freddie Gibbs is, again, one of the most technically assured and gifted rappers working today. And it can be, especially for someone who's just coming into listening to rap, it can be hard to look past the cocaine raps and the drug raps and the gun raps to see his immense technical proficiency. But it's there to see. But he clearly is working at the peak of what we imagine is the peak of his powers. If he can get any better than this, then fuck me. Yeah, Bandana, there's so many standout tracks. If we get a third album in this series, then I would definitely not complain. Even if they release it in 10 years and it's as good as Pinata and Bandana, I'm happy. Number 4, we have my guy, Mr. James Blake with Assume Form. To put it simply, in my opinion, this is his strongest solo album to date so far. I think it's his most refined, concise, finely tuned, and best produced album that he has made. And I like the fact that he's always been an inventive collaborator. Of course, those in America are known for his collaborations with, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and so on and so on. But I think it was not The Color and Anything, the album before that. What was it? What was it called? Overgrown. That was it. Pardon me. Overgrown. He had Bon Iver, RZA, Brian Eno. So he's always been willing to step outside of his relative comfort zone to collaborate with others to make something new, and he did that again with Assume Form. I mean, he got Metro Boomin producing a fucking trap ballad with Mile High. Rosalia's on there, Andre 3000, Travis Scott, of course, Moses Sumney. But the main thing to take away with Assume Form is that he has shed this kind of insular nature or insular themes that was dominating a lot of his songwriting, and it wasn't a bad thing because he was making some genuinely amazing music. But I think when he got to Assume Form, he'd kind of, that was all there was nothing left in the tank in terms of those kind of themes. And of course, now with his romance with Jamila Jamil, he was open to expressing his profound love and the vulnerability that comes along with being in love as well. And I think Assume Form perfectly distills all those emotions into one wholly cohesive listening experience. There are moments of immense beauty, especially the opening song and the closing song, but it's also got some of his most overtly romantic love songs like Can't Believe the Way We Flow, and again, like I said, some inventive use of features. He's even singing in Spanish at one point on the song with Rosalia. Yeah, James Blake is one of the finest producers working today, and this album is ethereal. That's the one way to describe this record. It's ethereal. So going into the top 3 now, we have another Londoner, Mr. Kane Robinson, Kano, with Hoodies All Summer. Oh my god! Again, I was looking forward to this album because Made in the Manor was in my opinion his strongest album up to that point. And I didn't think he could. I didn't love that album, but I thought it was pretty good, and I didn't think he could particularly top that. But Hoodies All Summer blows everything any English rapper has put out this year completely out of the water, no question. Hoodies All Summer it's so fluid and it's so organic and it's so poetic as well. Every track, it's only it's under 40 minutes, which is in this oversaturated world of rap where everyone's just trying to get the most streams, and you've got people putting fucking 25 songs in their albums, and you've got Migos releasing Culture 2. We do not speak of that album here. It's nice to see that someone so assured in their talents is confident enough to say, this is all we need and nothing more. The music will speak for itself, and the music does speak for itself. He's on Hoodies All Summer. There's this kind of beautiful mesh of traditional grime instrumentals and elements coupled with inspiration from R&B and neo soul and a lot of classical music arrangements as well, especially on the first song, 3 Years Later, which features these kind of swelling string sections. Of course, there's the he chooses to focus on quite a lot of heavy, depressing topics, especially I think his main preoccupation on this album is issues with knife crime and inequality, especially in Britain, and racism. But what makes this album different, and what makes it not just another "this many people died, feel sad" album, is that his optimism still shines through, and his willingness to try and resolve these issues in any small way that he can is what defines him as who he is. And he's not just this person wallowing in self-pity. And that's what makes this a particularly optimistic album by the time you get to its end. And of course, we can't talk about this album without talking about Class of Deja with D.E.E. and Getz. That is one of the best grime tracks I've ever heard in my lifetime. And I was born and raised in London. I can't get over this track, especially the second verse where Kano and Getz are doing this back and forth. It's so flawless. It blows my mind every single fucking time I listen to it. Hoodies All Summer is one of the most essential British albums to come out in years. At number 2, just missing out on number 1, is Jpig Mafia's All My Heroes Are Cornballs. God damn this fucking album. I went to see him live actually just under a month ago. It was one of the most energetic, sweat-filled performances I've ever had the pleasure of seeing live. I, like a lot of people, was introduced to Peggy via Veteran, but then All My Heroes Are Cornballs came along, and it just showed me a complete different side to him. All the elements that made Veteran so lovable were still there. You still had the strange, dissonant tonal shifts going on, his eclectic use of samples, and his distinct, rough, gritty rapping style and singing style as well. But he kind of evolved that with the new album, bringing in elements of more melodic music, some R&B influences. At one point, he just flat out starts singing TLC's Waterfalls. But I think the thing that strikes me so much about this album is just how fluid and unpredictable it is in the best possible way. You have no idea where the song is going next in the next minute or so. And I think the first few times I listened to the album, I would just listen to it from front to back. I struggled to actually know which track was called which track, because everything just was so fluid, and each song had its own little 3 or 4 detours. So I found it hard to distinguish, is this song? Is this song? And I think that's a testament to how he constructs an album listening experience. In terms of his lyrical content, again, he's touching on mainly internet culture, specifically Twitter, politics, racial injustice, stuff like that. But again, he's got an incredible sense of self-awareness about these topics. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he recognizes that he has this talent and he displays it extremely confidently. I think this is one of the most inventive, kaleidoscopic albums I've heard for years and years and years, and it's an album that you can't categorize it, and the music speaks to that, because every genre under the sun is an influence here. There's elements of hip hop and R&B, but there's elements of glitch music and electronic music and ambient music and metal and rock, and anything you could name under the sun, it's in there. There's something for everyone in All My Heroes Is Cornballs. And I think what I think about when I listen to this album is how we've come to consume music now, where with the wonders of streaming and internet access, you can access any type of music from any time period at an instant. And I think Peggy's aware of that, and how we've come to consume music is so vastly different from how 20, 30 years ago we were consuming music. We didn't have the wide range of options at our fingertips, and the music in All My Heroes Are Cornballs speaks to that. Everything is there. You will be guaranteed to find something that you like on this album, no matter what musical background that you come from, and I think that's the album's biggest strength. Aside from that, of course, it's wildly entertaining. You find something new almost in every listen, whether it's a bar that you haven't picked up on, or a strange musical detour or something more subtle in the background, you are rewarded by multiple listens, and I think it's one of the most unique and eclectic albums I've heard in a number of years. Here we go, number one, numero uno. It is, I'll just show you, this album right here. This album right fucking here. Yeah, I became a bit obsessed with Tyler the Creator's Igor. That number one, Tyler the Creator's Igor. I've spoken about this on this channel a couple of times now. And since I've spoken about it, I went to see him perform in Brixton, his first live show back in the UK for 4 years. The staging, the lighting, everything about it was fucking flawless. But I think I admit to having some small bias because I've been such a huge fan of Tyler's music for the last decade, for 10 years now, almost 10 years. But I think what he's done with Igor is his producing has now become the focus, and it is his most valuable commodity. The production choices and stylistic choices on Igor are very vivid, sometimes they're visceral, and they paint such a specific picture in this tightly constructed concept album. And I think the way it works as a concept album isn't like how I've heard concept albums done before, where you are given an overt storyline or theme to follow through. But in this case, it's simple. It's love and breakup, and heartbreak, sorry. And the way he navigates these different up and down emotions and spiraling mindsets is extremely unique, not just in terms of Tyler's music or the hip hop and rap world, but just popular music as a whole. And I think he has now solidified himself as one of the best producers working in the world right now. And I will admit that when Cherry Bomb came out, 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years now, I was not the biggest fan of it. And but I could see that there were moments of genius on that album, and I think that sowed the seed for what Igor eventually became. Of course, coupled with Flower, with all the neo soul and R&B influences on there, but he coupled that with some of the more lo-fi, gritty aesthetics of Cherry Bomb to create this just of just pure emotion in every aspect of the music. If it's the songwriting or the off-key singing or the strange zany production choices that he has, everything, every single second of the album contributes to the narrative. And there's no filler on this album whatsoever. There's no time for filler whatsoever. I love the fact that it's just a brief 39 minutes. Again, in the rap world, it's, that's rare to come across, especially in popular rap. You've got, artists like Drake and Migos who put out these massively bloated albums. Not to say that I don't enjoy those artists' music, because I definitely do, but I find myself picking, there's 25 songs on this album, let me pick my favorite 10 or 11 and put them in a playlist. It doesn't work as a wholly cohesive album listening experience. It just works to boost your streams and boost your sales, and that's just the world we live in. But it's refreshing to see that for someone who's been in the game as long as Tyler now, again, he's been doing this for over 10 years, that he does not care about that. The sole focus is, I have this idea, I want to execute it as perfectly and as coherently and as concisely as possible. And I think he's achieved that with Igor. I don't just think that Igor is the best album of this year. I think it's one of the best albums in general to come out in the last decade. And that's it. That's all she wrote. 2019 has been it's been a year. It's been an extremely strong year for music, in my opinion. Hopefully next year, 2020, the first year of the new decade, can be just as strong.